Okay, let's go over secondary user research for the goggles case study. If you haven't watched the first video in this series, you may want to go check that out first. Otherwise, this video might feel a little awkward. But I feel awkward all the time, so maybe you won't notice a difference. Secondary research uses data that's already been collected. It's reactive data. Its collection wasn't designed to answer the specific questions that you're trying to answer. Primary research, on the other hand, uses data you collected yourself through customer interviews, ethnography, surveys, whatever. It's proactive data because it's like,
hey, I've got a question that needs answering. I'm going to go ask the users.
So why do secondary research? Because it's wicked easy.
That's easy!
Secondary research is a precursor to primary research. It shouldn't replace it. Think of it as early modeling of our understanding of the customers, right? We're looking for product market fit, and our knowledge of both sides of that equation, both the product and the market, will evolve. We iterate our models of the product and the market. We'll end up with some advanced models at the end, but we start off with napkin sketches and secondary research. They won't be super accurate models, but they're a starting place. Statistician George Box, known for, among other things, the Box-Cox transformations, no, not that, famously said, well, famous among statisticians anyway, all models are wrong, some are useful. Here's a quick rundown of some sources of secondary research. To start, you may have some internal data, already available, customer complaints. If your product is a hard good product, returns, customer technical support calls. I worked for a robotics company for a little while, and I used to bring these 1-minute clips of tech support calls to the engineering meetings. The team found a lot of value in hearing the pain points directly from the users. For external data sources, you've got expert analysis, blogs, vlogs, and podcasts. You've got trade associations and the magazines they put out. Grad schools at universities put out a bunch of great stuff. The big consulting firms will put out white papers, to show off. You've got industry journals. There are corporate financial reports and SEC filings that may be applicable to what you're doing, maybe not. And of course, there's product reviews, which is what I use for the case study. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I've left the best secondary research source for last: public data sets. Just search online for public data sets or public databases. So much good data. I could spend the rest of my life just hanging out in data.gov. Okay, to the case study. I went through a bunch of reviews for goggles, and I copied and pasted them into a VOC table. And I don't mean volatile organic compounds, unless of course your target customers are angry, caustic people, and if so, I'm sorry for you. But at least there's probably some unmet needs there. Something made them angry. But what I really mean is voice of customer table. Voice of customer tables are a way to organize customer statements and pull out the underlying needs. They tend to be used more heavily with customer interviews and, ethnography, etc. But I like to start using them earlier on with the secondary research. So here's a VOC table. You can set these up all sorts of ways. Keeping it simple, I just put the review statements in one column and listed the underlying needs to the right. Here are a couple examples of extracting the needs from the statements. One reviewer wrote, "My only complaint is that I got a temporary indent on my nose after wearing them because it was blowing wind pretty hard and I had to tighten them a bit." The most obvious thing to me is that this user needs the goggles to work in high wind conditions. But if we break out our user mind meld powers, we'll see that the user also wants to look good after taking off the goggles, and they also don't want to have to adjust them throughout the day. The indent comment could be about discomfort, but I'm guessing they would have specifically said that if that were the case. Let's do another one. Yeah, sure. Fit is perfect and comfortable. The pink tint doesn't interfere with the snowy conditions while skiing down the slopes. Super clear. Never fogged up or had any moisture issues. Okay, so like the last one, it's got multiple things going on from which I extracted underlying needs. But I grabbed this one to point something else out. It would have been really easy for me to interpret the last sentence as just an instance of needing goggles not to fog up. That was the most prevalent need in the reviews, after all. But if I had done that, I would have mistakenly overlooked the new information. Moisture issues. This user specifically separated that out from fogging. It could be the same, but it could also be different. Users will often lump things together, possibly not even say them, because they're making some assumptions. So don't ignore a comment just because it's mentioned only once. This could be an issue for a lot of users that lead to a number of needs that aren't being met. Could be poor fit or discomfort or getting cold. This one comment could break open a whole new area of insights. A couple of closing notes. First, as a warning, it's easy to draw too many conclusions from secondary research. Remember, it wasn't set up to be unbiased, so it probably is. I mean, everything's biased, but even more so. And that's okay, just do it with eyes wide open. This model is going to be wrong, just make sure it's useful. And lastly, what's next? Well, we'll use what we learned from this to inform the primary research. It'll give me some direction and it'll help me be more efficient. As an example, the two dominant needs were not fogging up and working in various light conditions. So I better have some good follow-up questions ready around those. Another example, comfort and fitting the face well were sometimes mentioned together and sometimes separately. It'll be good to dig into that and learn more about how tight that relationship is. Get it? Tight. Fitting the face? Are they basically the same thing, or do users think of them very independently? So next up is preparing for customer interviews. I'll cover that in the next video. That's it for now. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. I did that before too. Oh, by the way, this isn't too early to start getting a sense of what the user stories might look like.